Once, in a small village nestled between silver hills and quiet rivers, there lived a boy named Cael. He wasn't like the other children, not because he was louder or faster or braver. Cael was quieter, thoughtful, and kind. But he had a secret, one he only discovered in dreams: he could fly. Each night, when the stars blinked open and the wind slowed to a whisper, Cael would climb onto the rooftop of his home, close his eyes, and let the quiet lift him. His feet would leave the tiles, his arms would stretch like wings, and the sky would welcome him as its own. He flew gently, never in a rush, gliding above fields of sleeping sunflowers, past the curve of the moon, and into the soft hush between the clouds. One night, as he floated higher than ever before, something new appeared in the sky: a forest. But not an ordinary one. This forest shimmered in the stars themselves, its trees made of soft light and branches strung with glowing orbs. It wasn't on the earth below, nor on the moon above. It hung in the sky, like a dream held together by starlight and stories. Drawn by curiosity and calm, Cael flew down into the trees. As he brushed through the glowing leaves, they rang gently like wind chimes. The air smelled of old pages, warm ink, and a touch of cinnamon. Then he saw it: at the center of the forest, nestled between two crescent moon trees, stood the library. Its spires were made of woven constellations. Its doors opened slowly, as though it had been waiting just for him. Inside, the air was hushed and full of wonder. Shelves stretched into the sky, each one lined with books that glowed softly. The titles shimmered and changed, as if they were still deciding what dream to become. Books floated through the air like leaves in a gentle breeze. Some sang lullabies. Others whispered forgotten lullabies in languages made of wind and light. A voice greeted him. "Welcome, Cael." He turned and saw a tall figure with a robe made of parchment and stars. It was the librarian. "We have a book waiting for you." Cael followed the librarian past stories of dancing whales, invisible dragons, and midnight balloon festivals. Finally, they stopped at a single floating shelf, where one book waited alone. It had no title. "Go ahead," said the librarian softly. Cael opened the book, and inside he found himself. Flying through the skies, discovering the starbound forest, walking into the library. The pages turned on their own, showing the story he was still living. "It writes itself as you dream," said the librarian. "But now, you may write too." The boy smiled. He took the quill offered to him, one made from a feather of a moonbird, and began to write softly. Once there was a boy who flew among the stars, searching not for treasure, but for wonder. When he finished, the book closed gently with a sigh and drifted back to its shelf. "Will I return?" Cael asked. The librarian nodded. The library never forgets its readers. Cael left the starbound library with a heart full of quiet stories and a mind filled with stardust dreams. As he flew home, the sky cradled him like a lullaby, and by the time he reached his roof, he was already drifting into sleep. And high above, in the library nestled among the stars, a new book glowed gently on the shelf, its pages fluttering in dreams. The next night, Cael flew with quiet excitement, the stars parting for him like petals on a midnight bloom. The starbound forest welcomed him again, its leaves shimmering with warm light and soft music. This time, when he entered the librarian was waiting beside a winding staircase that spiraled up through the stars. "There are stories here that were never finished," said the librarian. "Would you like to see them?" Cael nodded, and together they climbed the soft, silver steps until they reached the Hall of Forgotten Beginnings. Inside were thousands of tiny books, each no bigger than a raindrop. They floated like dandelion seeds in the air. Each one had a single sentence inside. A girl discovered a door in the side of a mountain. There once was a village that only appeared in the snow. A bear woke up one day speaking perfect poetry. "These are stories that someone dreamed but never completed," said the librarian. "You can listen to them, or finish one, if your heart knows the way." Cael picked a tiny book that hummed gently and opened it. A boy found a lighthouse floating in the sky, but it had no light to shine. He closed his eyes, smiled softly, and whispered a sentence. So he lit it with his own hope, and from that day forward, lost dreams always found their way home. The book glowed, then floated to a special shelf made of cloud light. One more story remembered, the librarian said. And somewhere, across the sky, a dream flickered back to life. On the third night, Cael returned to the library and was guided through a golden archway made of woven starlight. Inside was a long, moonlit hallway where soft snoring echoed gently from glowing orbs on the walls. "This is where the dream creatures rest when they're not being dreamed," said the librarian. Inside each orb was a curled-up creature, peaceful and glowing. There was a teacup-sized lion with wings made of petals. A snail whose shell turned like a planet. A cloud cat with whiskers of lightning and paws of mist. Cael's favorite was a floating fish made entirely of golden dust. It drifted through the air as if swimming in sleep. "They're born from imaginations," the librarian explained, "but when people forget them, they come here to sleep." Cael gently tapped the orb of the cloud cat. It opened one lazy eye, then closed it again. "Can I dream them back to life?" Cael asked. "You already are." As Cael wandered among the sleeping creatures, the golden dust fish began to follow him. Not because it had woken, but because it was dreaming too. One evening, Cael came to the library during a gentle star rain. The librarian met him with a knowing smile. "Tonight," he said, "you'll visit the room of soft echoes." It was a quiet chamber where the walls whispered, not loudly, but just enough to be heard if you stood very still. "What are they saying?" Cael asked. "They are echoes of the kindest things ever spoken in dreams." Cael leaned in close and listened. He heard a grandmother telling her granddaughter, "You're braver than you think." He heard a turtle whisper, "You're exactly where you need to be." He even heard someone say, "I believe in you, even when you don't believe in yourself." The words warmed him like a soft blanket. He sat down in the center of the room, and the echoes wrapped around him like lullabies. The librarian didn't say anything. He just let the boy listen. That night, Cael didn't write anything in his book. Instead, he dreamed of giving kind words to others, planting them in the ground like seeds. On the fifth night, something strange happened. When Cael returned to the library, one of the books called out to him. Not with words, but with a soft feeling. Like a memory you can't quite place, but know you felt before. He picked it up, and as soon as he did, the book opened on its own. But this time, it didn't show his story. It showed another. A girl in a tower of mirrors, dreaming of the sky. A baker who made bread that sang when you sliced it. A fox in a forest made of whispers. Cael blinked. "That one," he whispered, pointing to the fox. "That's not mine, is it?" "No," said the librarian. "That's someone else's dream. But it remembers you." The fox in the story turned and looked at Cael. Then it winked. The book pulsed gently and closed itself. "There are some dreams," the librarian said, "that dream you back." On the sixth night, when Cael arrived in the Starbound library, the sky was darker than usual. Not unfriendly, just quieter. Even the stars blinked more slowly, like they, too, were ready for sleep. The librarian met him with a lantern. It wasn't like any lantern Cael had seen before. This one had no flame, but inside it swirled a soft, blue light that shimmered with tiny shapes, clocks, feathers, falling petals. "This," the librarian said, handing it to him, "is a lantern of lost hours." "Lost hours?" Cael asked softly. The librarian nodded. "Time that slipped through fingers. Moments missed. Little pockets of peace that never had the chance to be." Cael looked into the lantern. The soft glow shifted, and suddenly he saw things. A squirrel falling asleep before hearing the end of its bedtime story. A girl who meant to lie in the grass and watch clouds but never quite made it. A quiet moment someone saved for later, and forgot. These aren't sad things, the librarian said. They're simply waiting. Would you like to return some of them? Cael nodded gently. So he carried the lantern through the starbound forest. As he passed trees and clouds and sleeping starlight, little threads of light drifted from the lantern and floated away, settling like snowflakes into places where they were once needed. Some found their way to sleeping animals. Others nestled into dreams. One settled into Cael's own pocket, warm and weightless. By the time he returned to the library, the lantern was dimmer, but not empty. It would never be empty. There are always more soft hours waiting to be remembered. Thank you, Cael whispered. And the librarian smiled, placing the lantern gently back on its shelf, among the stories, dreams, and star-kissed moments that made the library more than a place. It was a keeper of time, of wonder, and of quiet things worth remembering. That night, Cael wrote only one sentence in his glowing book. Some moments return only when you slow down enough to feel them. Then, with the stars humming their slow lullaby, he curled up beneath a bookshelf and drifted into a sleep deeper than ever before.